What's up, everyone? Welcome to Max's Football Playbook, your go-to spot for power rankings, weekly game predictions, and off-season discussions like the draft or free agency. Today, we're going to be concluding our off-season blueprint/plan videos with the hometown Chicago Bears. I'm sure there's a bunch of people here who are probably excited to see this video, so let's get into it. The Chicago Bears need a defensive tackle, safety, defensive end, linebacker. Could still need a new center, even though they do have Bradbury. They definitely need an offensive tackle, preferably a veteran one that could help step in for Ozzie while he's probably going to be hurt next season. And lastly, they could use some wide receiver depth and tight end depth, along with cornerback depth. Starting with potential restructures we can do, we could restructure Montez Sweat and Joe Thuney. The reason why we would restructure both of these guys is because they're guys we can trust to be good long-term, and restructuring them can let us get some bigger free agents. Also, in this video, I was going to trade DJ Moore and Tremaine Edmunds. As you guys probably know by now, the Bills traded for DJ Moore. They got a really good pick for that. That was a great trade that they made. And Edmunds unfortunately got cut. But my mock trade for Edmunds would be trading Tremaine Edmunds to the Giants for a 4th-round pick, because the Giants do need a linebacker. And of course, from the Bears side, it saves money. Next, another guy I'm going to cut because he was paid a pretty big amount of money, and he was very unproductive last season. Pretty sure he also got injured, is Dayo Odeyingbo. It just makes a lot of sense, and he saves a lot of money with the post-June 1st cut. And that's our cuts, trade cap savings, and restructures. Now, unfortunately, since, of course, DJ Moore and Tremaine Edmunds did get traded, we don't have many trades left. However, I do have a pretty small trade that I could definitely see happening, which is trading quarterback Tyson Bagent to the Arizona Cardinals, because they're a team that has reported interest. And I think the Bears can get a pick maybe like 142. I like this trade for the Cardinals because you do bring in a slightly younger guy. And of course, you do need a guy in your cornerback room, especially when you're about to release Kyler Murray. For the Bears, it saves you a good amount of cap space. It's not much. However, I think he's a replaceable guy, and we're going to try to find a replacement in the draft. With our RFA tenders, we're not going to give it to McFadden or Hardy. The reason why is because I don't think they're worth it, and I think we can maybe re-sign them for cheaper if we'd like to. Let's start with our re-signings. Here at quarterback, Case Keenum, I would like to bring him back, but I'm just going to predict that he's probably going to retire. That's kind of what it sounds like. So let's get into the running back position. At running back, I think we can move off from Travis Homer. I do like him as a good rotational guy. However, I think you can find a guy in the draft who's cheaper than this price. At wide receiver, I'm definitely going to bring back Zaccheaus and Duvernay. Duvernay, of course, is a really good punt returner, and I'm sure you would love that for this Chicago Bears team. I think a deal for him would be something like 2 years, $3.5 million, so $7 million times 2, 3.4. It's about right. And for Zaccheaus, a deal could be like 2 years, $5 million. But if you're projecting him now as your wide receiver 3 potentially, I think he can get a little bit more money. So let's do something like 2 years, $6 million. I think that's about right. It's a little under 6. As you can see, we still have a lot of cap space left, especially after that Tremaine Edmunds cut, DJ Moore cut, and trading Tyson Bagent, as well as cutting Odeyingbo post-June 1st and restructuring Sweat and Thuney. Here at tight end, I'm not going to bring back Smythe because I think we can find someone for cheaper who gives about the same value. At offensive tackle, we're going to move off of Braxton Jones. I mean, he'd probably be wanting a multi-year contract, and problem is you have Ozzie Trapillo. Obviously, Trapillo probably would be ready to replace him, but he's hurt. So you'd probably want a veteran rather than get Braxton Jones. And I don't think he'd want to sign for a 1-year deal. With the rest of these guys, we're going to move on from them. However, I am going to re-sign McFadden. I think he could be a good, helpful depth piece, and he doesn't cost much. So let's do something like that for 3 years. At edge, we're definitely going to move off of Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Reason why is because he did get traded for a 7th-round pick, and when he did get some chance to play, he didn't really look too good, so we can move off of him. With Daniel Hardy, a deal would probably be like 2 year, $2.8 million. I'm going to bring him back because he's good rotational depth, and of course, you do need some help at the edge spot. Dominique Robinson. Robinson's deal would probably be something like 2 year, $4 million. And of course, I do want to keep some depth pieces at a position of need. Next up at defensive tackle, we are not going to re-sign Chris Williams. Reason why we're not going to do it is because he's not amazing, and I think we can find a better replacement. He's also not the best run defender per PFF. He has a pretty low run defense grade. But a guy that I do want to bring back is Andrew Billings. Billings is a good veteran who could definitely help this floor of the defense be higher. His value would probably be something like $3.5 million, so we're going to do that. Next up at linebacker, of course, Edmonds is gone, so of course I don't see them re-signing him. I don't think we're going to bring back Amen or these other two guys, but a guy that I would like to bring back is probably DeMarco Jackson. This website has him way overvalued. His value would probably be something like 2 years, $10 million. So in this case, we're just going to have to force this trade eventually. The reason why I would want to bring him back is because he's a good coverage guy. And when he did step in last season, he did look pretty good. Now, moving on to cornerbacks, we're going to move off of Nick McLeod, Jalen Jones, because I think they're replaceable. And I think this signing is probably maybe unrealistic, but I really would like him back. So if we're doing a perfect offseason plan type thing, it would be great to bring back Nahshon Wright. I think Wright would come back for something like a 2-year, $16 million deal. Of course, the reason why you do want to bring him back is because this defense has kind of made their identity based off having playmakers, and Nahshon Wright is exactly that for this team. Finally, at safety, we have a lot of guys who, of course, we could bring back. I don't think Brisker's going to re-sign, and I think he's going to cost too much. I think you got to try to save some money for some other players. However, I am going to bring back Kevin Byard. This one seems like a more realistic deal to do, and I think he'd sign for something like 1 year, $7 million. Along with him, we're also going to bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson Jr. I like this player because he's also a good veteran, and after signing him as a free agent mid-season, he did look really good for the Bears, and for a defense that definitely needs some improvement, he offers some good continuity and stability at that safety spot. We're going to move off of Jonathan Owens. We just signed 2 veteran safeties, and I think we can look elsewhere. But I am going to re-sign Elijah Hicks. I think he's a good depth piece, and a contract for him would probably be something like a vet cheap minimum type deal, which is like 1 year, $1.2 million. So in this case, this website has him overvalued, but we're going to force the 1.3 because that's probably what his actual value might be around. And as you can see, those are the guys that I want to re-sign and not re-sign. So now let's get into our free agency signings. Let's start with a guy who's very serviceable and has been with a decent amount of teams recently because he's been traded. He's a great serviceable starter, as you know, for Ozzie Trapillo, who unfortunately did suffer an injury. And I think a deal for him would probably be something like 1 year, $8.2 million. Now, as you can see, we don't have much cap space, so I want to bring in 2 veteran guys who can definitely help this defense right away. As you know, this team has a ceiling, which could definitely win the Super Bowl. So a guy who I could see going back to the Bears would be Khalil Mack. Mack is towards the end of his deal. However, he is, of course, still a really good player, and this would be a cool reunion. I think his value would be somewhere around 1 year, $7.2 million, as I don't know if he's chasing as much money, and I think he would like to go to a spot where he feels comfortable, which is maybe the Bears. Finally, we do also have to create some cap space to make our final signing. So we're going to cut Hankins, who's probably more of a practice squad player. Carlson is probably also the same thing. And let's cut Flowers, which frees up $8.7 million for our last free agency signing. And this is Demario Davis. Demario Davis is still a really good player, even at his age, of course. And he's definitely a good bridge linebacker for a 1-year deal who can definitely help this team who has Super Bowl aspirations next year. But of course, after our free agency signings of Robinson, Demario Davis, and Khalil Mack, let's get into the NFL draft. Looking at the board here, you could definitely consider C.J. Allen, Caden McDonald, maybe a cornerback, but I think the main 2 is probably C.J. Allen, Caden McDonald, and Akeem Mesidor. 4 in my mock offseason plan for the Bears, I did have them facilitate a Ty Simpson move where they traded pick 25 and 57 for 33, 44, and 175. I think they could definitely be the Ty Simpson facilitator, but of course, as you can see in this mock right here, Ty Simpson has been taken by the Browns, which wouldn't be too shocking, but it's definitely a little bit surprising because I don't really expect them to take Ty Simpson in this draft, but it's sure a possibility for them. But as I'm thinking about it, I do have a trade in mind that I could see, which is the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, they did get some other 5th and 6th round picks from that Trent McDuffie trade. They definitely got to try to find their cornerback replacement. And so I think maybe in this case, the Bears could be a facilitator where they allow the Chiefs to go up and they can take Avion Terrell, who is the best cornerback left on the board. So a fair deal, according to the straight calculator, is Bears trade down 4 spots. They get pick 109, and they do have to give up a 6th-round pick. But of course, this would be a good trade considering you do have a multitude of options available still, and I'm sure we'll have a guy that we like available. Unfortunately, McDonald, Allen, and Mesidor did go, but a guy who I do think might be better than all of these guys, and especially flashed in the Senior Bowl and looked pretty good in the Combine, I had him as one of my winners, is Caleb Banks. Banks is a big player who could definitely help that run game and that pass game, and of course addresses basically your biggest need in this offseason. At pick 57, I see a guy who I absolutely love on this board. That's got to be Jacob Rodriguez. Rodriguez had an absolutely amazing season. He was very productive. I'm honestly not sure why people have him lower, and this draft site does have him lower. I think he probably goes a little higher in the draft. However, I don't think it's unrealistic that Rodriguez falls here. And a fun fact about Rodriguez is that he was so good last season that he almost won the frickin' Heisman as a linebacker, and that just shows you how much he could help this team right away. And of course, you do have Demario Davis, but a younger guy like Rodriguez will also be able to help you create a new linebacker core for the Bears. Rodriguez also has elite IQ, which is obviously what the Bears' defense identity is, so I think that's a good fit. Here, of course, we did let go of Jaquan Brisker, so I think you'd like to draft a safety. And looking at the board here of safeties, we do have a big 3 to choose. I'd also throw in Zakee Wheatley. I think he's a little underrated on this website, and I'd probably have him around like 80th best player. I might even have him even higher. But between Halsey, Smith, and Ramsey, the most similar player to Jaquan Brisker is Halsey. Halsey is a hard-hitting safety. He's also an enforcer. And like Brisker, he has the experience of playing all over the field, including the box, as a robber, and can do multiple split safety looks. And going back to our re-signings, we did move off of Jalen Jones and Nick McLeod. So I think a guy who could step in and could definitely learn for a little bit, but is also a good depth piece, here is Chandler Rivers. Chandler Rivers is a player who has great IQ, and he's a really great zone defender and was a productive player in college. At pick 109 here, I think this is definitely a spot where you could take a good edge rusher. And for me, the best one available is K'Ron Crawford. Of course, this is a big need, and we did take a defensive tackle earlier, so I do think you got to try to look for an edge that could learn under Khalil Mack, who, of course, we did sign in free agency. Ja'Day Walker could be your wide receiver 3, but I think you want some competition. And there's 2 guys who are both good here, which is Coleman and Cameron. But I'm going to take Josh Cameron. Cameron is a player who is physical and can be a good red zone threat. And I like him because he serves some special team value in case Duvernay gets hurt or if he doesn't re-sign somehow. Now let's draft another edge because I think looking at this board, Tucker and Crawford would be really good fits because Crawford is more of a run defense guy and Tucker was very productive. Sure, he did play against some smaller competition. However, I do think he can translate to the bigger level. And the thing about Tucker is that he was specifically more of a pass rusher. So I think it's a good fit of 2 young guys who serve different specific roles. Finally, to end off our draft, we have pick 238 and 240. We did let go of Tyson Bagent. So I think another guy who's similar and I could see has a high floor and is basically in-state was Luke Altmaier. I like Altmaier. I think he will project as a really good bench player for a long time. And he's also a guy who I could see win like 2 out of 3 games if you do need him to start and you have a good system around him because he's a quarterback who really fits like an NFL type style mold compared to these guys who are more smaller and some athletic runners. Let's get another offensive lineman because you do have Garrett Bradbury, but he's an older guy. So maybe we could look for someone who can kick inside, especially looking at the board here. There's not an interior offensive lineman that's ranked really high. And there are some offensive tackles who are left here. And of Willis, Trost, Lay, and Harkey, I think the guy who has the most experience is Tristan Lay because he is a tackle, but many scouts do see him with his size and foot speed to translate better to guard in the NFL. So I think he could help out that interior offensive line. And would you look at that? We got a B- from the website. This is kind of what our depth chart would be. Of course, I do still need to adjust it, and I think the Bears would be able to find an older vet quarterback to bring in from free agency. And then these are our moves. We cut all these guys, restructured, traded Tyson Bagent, signed all of these guys. In the draft, we got Banks, Rodriguez, Halsey, Rivers, Crawford, Cameron, Tucker, Altmaier, and Lay. Thanks for watching this video. I really appreciate you guys. Let me know what I can do better and what videos you want in the future. But until next time, see you guys.